and say, welcome to Restoration. We're in week 3 of my message series. I'm calling Lies That Satan Wants You to Believe. And hey, listen, one of the things I've been trying to get people to realize in this series as we've been going through is that we need to start taking Satan, the devil, a little bit more seriously. It's not a joke. Last week I showed you the results of a study from a place called the Barna Group, which found out that only 25%, only 1 in 4 people who call themselves Christians strongly disagree with the statement that Satan is just a symbol of evil. Only 25% statistically of believers strongly disagree with the fact of people saying he's just a symbol, he's not real. Now, we don't agree with that. Satan is real. He wants to steal your joy. It's crazy. Satan is alive and well. There's nothing more that Satan would love than to deceive you and to draw you in and to have you leave this church and to bring you down so much that you just want to get away. It's not good. To put it bluntly, Satan is a liar. I don't know how else to say it. There's no way to sugarcoat it. In fact, listen to how Jesus describes Satan. He said this in John 8:44. Jesus said he was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, but there's no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. All of us probably at one time or another have fallen victim to the trap of listening to Satan's lies. Maybe like me before you planned to do something big, right? And then you heard that voice in your head and you thought maybe it was just your confidence or you thought it was your conscience. No, it's Satan. It's Satan trying to tell you, what do you think you're doing? You're not good enough to do that. You're not smart enough to do that. You can't do that. And so you gave up. Satan loves to deceive us. Last week we talked a little bit about worry. Satan loves to make us worry, right? He's got you convinced that it's going to happen. And not only is it going to happen, but it's not going to be good when it does happen, right? He's got you so worked up about worry that you can hardly concentrate on anything else. That's what Satan loves. He's like victory, complete. The more he can make you worry, the less you're going to think about God. In fact, I didn't tell you last week, but I told you before, worry is the anti-prayer. You should be praying, not worrying. Pray to God, pray to God. Get Satan out of my life. But today, I want to look at another trick, another tactic that Satan uses to tear us down. You see, if Satan can't deceive us, if he can't distract us, then he has one more trick left up his sleeve. Satan loves to discourage us. Last week we looked at Psalm 118:24. Some of you could probably quote it without even looking at the screen. This is the day that the Lord has made, so let us rejoice in what? We didn't sound very glad about it. This is the day the Lord has made, so let us rejoice in. There you go, there you go. Jeez, think about February right now. Some of you are going to be like, it's freezing, you should be glad in today, right? I know it's a little bit more, but we should be glad. I love that verse. It sounds so good. Man, when I was like, back in those days when I was talking about that building dedication, I was just a little baby Christian, didn't know what I was doing. I'm looking at Tammy like, why are you like, what? Is this part of your thing? I don't know. It's like, I remember that song. They actually made a song out of that verse. This is the day that the Lord has made. See all the people are looking, you all like, I don't have any clue what you're talking about. Look at this group over here. They all know. They're all like, I remember that song. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. It sounds so good, doesn't it? It sounds good. I can make you say it. You even said it the second time, like you almost believed it, like we're excited about it. And some days we do feel like that. I'll tell you what, it's like prancing through the park on a beautiful day. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice. I'll tell you what was a good day. A prancing in the park type day was the day that the city walked out of here and gave me my CO for this building. That was a prancing in the park type of day. I was like, whoo, see ya, thank you for that certificate. Have a nice day. Anyway, nothing against them personally. It's just, it was a nice day. It was good to have that official piece of paper. But there's also reality. And if you know me at all, I'm not one of those preachers that's just going to stand up here every day and go, okay, this is the day the Lord has made, so we better rejoice and be glad in it. Not every day is a prancing in the park type of day. Like not every day seems to be a great day. today or maybe listening online, some days we feel like not content. We don't feel fulfilled. We don't feel good, right? Sure, there's highs here and there, but it's not long before we begin to feel unfulfilled again. I remember when I grew up north and my wife's family moved to Florida to start that church. And then her sister moved to Florida, and then I saw where all that was going. You should move to Florida. No. Florida's a nice place to visit, but I don't want to live there. But after you hear that for like 2 years, and then when you're working in snow removal and there's a really bad storm, and she asks you in February, there's this moment of weakness where you're like, Florida doesn't seem that bad. And so we did it. And we moved there for 15 years. And part of me moving to Florida was that I was going to buy a bass boat, because that was part of the deal, guys. When you make a deal, you make a deal, right? All right, I'll move to Florida, but... So I got a bass boat. It wasn't brand new, but it was used, but it was nice. And I tried to haul my bass boat, but I couldn't haul my bass boat because I needed a bigger car, so I bought a different car to haul my bass boat. And then I realized when I went out, my trolling motor doesn't really work that well, so I need a new trolling motor, Tammy. I have to have a new trolling motor, right? So I went and got a new trolling motor, and then I was like, you know what? I really need to make this engine a little bit better. It just kind of went on, and then I started getting in fishing tournaments, and I would see these guys with these great big boats, and I was like, I need this, and I need that. I was never content with what I had, and finally it just came down to, I need another boat. I need a new boat. So it didn't happen, but anyway, even Tammy's off the line somewhere. But isn't that kind of the circle of life, though? Like, I want this, and it was like the best bass boat I ever was. The only bass boat I ever had. But it was really nice, right? But then I needed nicer, and then I needed this, and I needed the car, and I needed this, and I needed that. Why is it that some of us can never feel content? We have a nice place to live, but we want to have a better place, right? We have a car that gets us where we want to go, but we want a better car. We have so much food. I don't know how it is at your house, but we have so much food, we argue about what we're going to eat, and then we throw the other half away. That's how much food we have. And yet, for some of us, we can never seem to feel contentment. We can never seem to feel peace. And if that's you today, you need to know something really important. Those feelings of discontent, that constant nagging inside your head of, I feel like things could be better, that feeling of never having enough, those thoughts come from Satan. Satan loves to discourage us. It's one of his biggest goals. So today, I was going to try to cram this all into one sermon, but I'm just going to tell you right up front, this is going to be a two-part. All right, so you're going to have to hang with me. Otherwise, it was going to be really long, and you'd all be like ready to shoot me, and you're like, okay, I don't want to deal with this, right? So today, I just want to look at 3 ways that discontentment hurts our relationship with God. And next week, we're going to look at contentment. So we'll get to that. But I'm going to come out huge today. And instead of giving you my big point at the end, I'm going to give you my big point right at the beginning because I just think it's really important. I can just tell you guys to answer and you're like, I just want to get up with my day. It's the 4th of July weekend. Hurry it up, preach your boy. So, here we go. Why does Satan like to discourage us? Discontentment causes us to focus on what we don't have rather than trusting God. That's probably one of my biggest points for today. Usually I come out at the end with that, and I come out with the beginning, and there's a reason why. Because this is one of the most important things about discontentment. It causes us to focus on what we don't have, right? When we're not content, it's because, oh, I don't have this, and I don't have that, and I won't be happy. This is one of Satan's most successful tactics. The lie of making us think that we need more things to be truly happy. Once I get the trailer, right? Once I get the trolling motor, once I get the fish finder, once I get that new pole, I need a new boat. Once we get to that next big thing, then we'll be happy. Am I the only one who goes through life like that sometimes? We just always seem to want more. And listen, the father of all lies, Satan, he knows that one of the biggest ways to get our attention is by using material things into deceiving us to think that they're going to bring us happiness. Satan loves to let you think that material things are going to bring you happiness. And they may bring you happiness for a short time. Once I get that car, then I'll be happy. Once I get that house, right? Once I get that iPhone 14, Once I get the iPhone 15. No, wait, the iPhone 16 with the long life max battery, with the supercharged this, that, blah, blah, blah. Wait, isn't the 17 out already? Isn't it crazy how we're never content? Like my phone right now literally has 3 or 4 cameras on it. I mean, how many more cameras can we fit on a phone? This one's for up close, this one's far away, but I already need a new phone. The problem with that kind of mentality of thinking that material things is going to bring us contentment is that things always get better. Things always change. There's always going to be something better. And when you have discontentment in your life, you think that something's going to make you happy. And I'm not saying it won't for a short amount of time, but the circle just keeps going on. It's a vicious cycle. And once I have this, no, once I have this, once I have this, no, once I get that. Well, I went through that so many years of my life. And Satan knows that. That's why he loves to make you feel uncontent. It's called chasing carrots. It's like putting a carrot in front of a mule or a donkey, and he's walking around, he's just constantly chasing that carrot, trying to get it. That's what Satan has some of us doing right now. You're not concentrating on God. You're not concentrating on your family. You're not concentrating on your relationship with God. You're concentrating on the next carrot. Where can I get this? Once I get that, once I get that, once I get that, then you're always in search of the next great thing that's going to make you happy in church. Here's the thing. Satan knows that if he can get you to buy into feeling what you don't have, right, then he can move on to step 2, because that's the first step of that. Concentrate on what you don't have. It'll make you happier once you have this. Then he's going to go into step 2. You see, all too often, discontentment causes us to compare ourselves to other people. No one here compares themselves to others, right? I knew nobody would raise their hand. Good old comparisonitis is the worst. Because the thing is, with comparisonitis, it goes both ways. You don't feel good about yourself? All you got to do is look around and go, well, at least I'm not that guy. Right? Or you can use it the other way and say, hey, you're not as good as me. I mean, we can use it to make ourselves feel better. Right? Comparisonitis can lead to jealousy and hatred and depression and a bunch of other issues. And that's why Satan loves to make us feel discontent. He loves to keep our mind moving all the time and make us think about things except for him, right? The Apostle Paul faced some people who weren't too content at a Christian church in a place called Corinth. Can you imagine that? People in the church not being happy? Can't ever imagine that. Apparently there was a contingent of people within the church who thought that Paul was much bolder in his writings than he was when they saw him in person. I can't imagine that someone would actually cut a preacher down. Can you believe that? The gall of people. There also appears to be some references to how Paul looked as well. It's in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, if you want to look at this morning. Paul makes it a point to address some of the things he's heard and how to fix them. But by the way, just so you know, this is a good reference point for you outside of contentment. That if you're ever going to talk bad about me, it's going to get back to me. All right? So just some of you right now are looking at me kind of nervously like, did he hear it? Listen to the words that Paul wrote to the church. 2 Corinthians 10, verse 1. By the humility, this verse just cracks me up before I read this. This cracks me up. It's coming from a preacher's perspective. You're going to get it in a second. By the humility and gentleness of Christ, that's a nice way of saying, I'm going to try not to punch you right now. I appeal to you, I, Paul, who am timid when face to face with you, but bold towards you when I'm away. You see, he's letting them know. He just went, there's one right across your bow. I know what you've been saying about me. Hey, it's me, Paul, the one who's timid when I'm in person, but bold when I'm away. I beg you that when I come, I may not have to be as bold as I expect to be towards some people who think that we live by the standards of this world. That's a pretty rough verse right there. That's how Paul starts his letter. He tells them, listen, I'm going to be coming, and hopefully I don't have to be as bold as some of you would like me to be when I start talking about the way you're talking about me. Verse 7, you are judging by appearances. If anyone is confident they belong to Christ, they should consider again that we belong to Christ just as much as they do. Someone needs to hear that today. We don't judge. In fact, that's one of our actual core values here at Restoration Church. We do not judge people here. We don't label people. We don't want to put people into categories or classify people here, so you're safe in this space, but Paul wasn't. He said they should consider again that they belong to Christ just as much as they do. For some say his letters are weighty and forceful, but in person he's unimpressive, and his speaking amounts to nothing. That's some pretty harsh criticism towards Paul, isn't it? His speaking amounts to nothing. In reading verse 10, it appears that not only did some people within the church think that Paul was all bark and no bite, he also alluded to the fact, or they alluded to the fact, that he's really not much to look at in person. Unlike you guys who get a glorious thing to look at every Sunday. No comments. We don't have any pictures of Paul, but we do have actually an ancient writing that somewhat describes his physical appearance. Listen to this description of Paul. This is from a 3rd century writing known as the Acts of Paul. The author wrote these words. I didn't make this up. Paul was a man of middle in size, and his hair was scanty, and his legs were a little crooked, and his knees were far apart. He had huge eyes, and his eyebrows met, and his nose was somewhat long. Wow, nailed it. Reading that description of Paul makes it a little bit easier for me to understand why Paul probably never got married. Somehow when you start reading the Bible, it all just comes together. It's like, Paul's like, I didn't really want to get married. It's like, no, dude, you were just smart. Never did. Seriously, Paul heard the criticism. Sure, it sounds great in his letters, but wait till you see him in person. Boy, are you going to be disappointed. Not only is he not nearly as bold, but look at him, right? For some of the people in the church at Corinth, Paul wasn't good enough to be one of the church leaders. He didn't reach the status. He didn't look the look. He didn't talk the part. He didn't walk that part that they wanted. He didn't fit the style, the image that they wanted to portray at the church. And unfortunately, church, there's still churches like that today, where you could walk in, or the preacher could walk in and they'll be like, no. In verse 12, Paul addresses why comparing ourselves to others is a bad thing to do. So he shoots one across the bow, and I was going to tell him, this is wrong. And you know what I like about Paul before I read verse 12? What's so important to me that I didn't really put into my sermon, but I just want to tell you, for Paul to show his maturity here, to not go off and off like, boy, wait till I see Bob, or wait till I see Joe, or wait till I see all those people that you told me have been talking about. He didn't go into that. He mentioned it, and then he moved on. But you know what he's doing? He's giving them the biblical, practical advice. He's not taking, he probably took it a little personally, but he's not taking it personally where he stood up there. He was telling them what Christ wants us to do. And I think outside of what I'm talking about today, that's a good lesson for all of us, right? Like when someone cuts us down or someone is being harsh to us, it's like, you know what? You can cut me down, but don't cut my breath down, right? People are always going to cut us down. We're never going to be good enough for some people. I'm never going to do much. I mean, look at this Greek Adonis look, and some of you, you're still not happy with me, right? I tried my best. Look at this. He tells the church, we do not dare to classify or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves. When they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are not wise. You know what he just said? They set the benchmark of who's good enough. And they were the benchmark. You're not as good as us. If you are better than us, well, then we'll just kind of excommunicate you from the church. Paul's letting the church know this is not how we should be operating. This is not how we should be talking. This is not what we should be doing. Some people in the church were making themselves the measuring stick of success. And Paul's saying that's a bad idea for two reasons. He didn't say it, but it's a bad idea for two reasons for them to act like this, like they're better than everybody else. First of all, if you're saying, I'm the best Christian at the church in Corinth, I'm sorry, but that's not really saying much because the church in Corinth was terrible. You just have to read it. They were full of all kinds of bad things. So if you're saying you're the best one there, that's like saying you were just the getaway driver at the robbery. Secondly, and more importantly, Paul wanted them to know it was wrong to judge someone based on their outward appearance. And we've probably all done it at one time or another. We sit here and we read these verses and we're like, that's terrible. It's like, we've probably all done the same thing. The church in Corinth had begun to judge people using a human scale. In other words, what can we see? That's how we judge people, by what we see. Paul says, that's not right. You know, Paul said, sure, I might not be much to look at. Maybe I do sound a little bit tougher in my letters than I am in person. But he said, you can't judge me by using human standards. And that's what I want to let you know. The reason I'm talking about these verses, and the reason I'm talking about comparison-itis is because it hurts us. It hurts our contentment. We're never going to be content. When we begin to judge people by human standards, do you know what it does? It takes God out of the equation. It all of a sudden makes you God because you're looking at this person and you're going, you know, you're not going to amount to anything. You're not really a good speaker in person. You don't even really look that good. You're probably just trying to find another job. It's like you just took everything that I said in week 1 of this sermon series and threw it right out the window, that you were God's masterpiece, created in His image to do good things, which Christ Jesus created in advance for you to do. You just threw all that out the window because you think that I'm not good enough. Speaking in terms of Paul, of course, and some of us as well. In the Corinth church, it was in Greece, and they had really good speakers there, and they had poets, and they had writers and actors, and there was a lot of professional people, and then you have Paul, you know, looking like Igor coming in, and he's really not even as bold as he is in his letters, and it was just kind of a letdown, right? But God doesn't measure us by human standards, church. He looks at our hearts. And you can say what you want about Paul, but the fact is Paul wrote over half of the New Testament. You can say what you want about Paul, but the thing is Paul started numerous churches. What had they done? Oh yeah, nothing. And while Paul may not have been as polished a speaker as some that they had heard, or maybe he didn't fit the look they wanted, he had a good heart. Paul finishes verse 12 by saying, people who do this, who judge by themselves, who set themselves as the benchmark and then expect other people to be there, he said they're not wise. I looked up that verse in the Greek. You know what it means? It just means you're not wise. It's just very wise. Don't do it. Comparing ourselves to others isn't a smart thing to do. So Satan loves to make us feel discontent because here it is. It makes us think of what we don't have, and then it makes us start comparing ourselves to other people. So you got the left cut, right? And then you got the right coming in, and now here comes the uppercut. Because once Paul gets you there, he gives us the 1-2 punch, and then he comes in for the final blow. You see, church, the father of lies knows ultimately that discontent will cause you to doubt God. And that's why I'm going through this in progression. He makes you think of what you don't have. You might not think that's that big of a deal. I just want some of this. It's not a big deal, Tim. I'm not asking for like new houses or palaces or anything. I just want something. He makes you think of what you don't have. And when you don't get those things, then you start to compare yourself. Well, why did they get a nice big house? Why did you say they just got another new car? The neighbors, they got another new car. They don't even work. Like it just starts messing with your mind. So Satan hits you with the left, he hits you with the right, and then you start to doubt God. This is why discontentment is so bad. This is why Satan loves for us to be discontent. You don't think it's a big deal, it's a huge deal. Because Satan knows if he can get us to focus on the things that we don't have, then he can make us begin to compare our lives to others. Then he's won us over. Because we're not happy. We're not happy with where God has us. We're not happy with how God created us. We're not happy with the story that it's writing. You see, when you get to that point, every time something happens, you begin to question God. This is all spoken from experience. And maybe some of you have that experience as well. We begin to say things like, oh yeah, it looks like they got that new position at work. Why should I be surprised? Every time there's a raise, every time there's a promotion, they get it, even though they don't do anything. We do that kind of stuff all the time. Not getting what we think we deserve and then combining it with comparison-itis can make us feel slighted by God. Have you ever felt slighted by God before? Why did they get that? And I don't get this. Satan has this way of getting us to believe that every time something doesn't go our way, it's not his fault. It's not our fault. You know whose fault it is? It's God's fault. Why won't you give me what I deserve? Why do they get it? How come I don't get it? Once I get it, then I'll be happy, God, if you could just give me that. In fact, you know what? If God had a website, I was wondering the other day, how many one-star reviews would he get on Google? Can you imagine? 1 star. God didn't give me the raise at work. 2 stars. I would have given him 3, but everything didn't go exactly the way I wanted. Right? 1 star. Don't trust this guy. By the way, I spent way too long on that slide, in case you're there. Satan would love for you to give God a 1-star review. You want to know why? Because if you're not content with where God has you, there's a good chance that Satan can win you over. When you're not content with where you're at with God right now, today, there's a good chance that Satan can win you over. After all, there's something for you to think about. That was Satan's downfall. Uncontentment was Satan's downfall. He was created as an archangel. He was created as almost like God's right-hand man. And one day, you can look it up in Ezekiel. I don't have time to go through the whole thing. I wish I did. I didn't have one next week, but I'm just going to short cliff note it for you because I already had long announcements. So, basically, he thought he was better than God, and he tried to put himself higher than God, and God said, okay, you need to leave. And on the way out, Satan said, hey, who's coming with me? He took 1/3 of the angels with him. It's like the old disgruntled person leaving the church and saying, anybody coming with me? Let's go. And this part right here, this part of my message is what some people really need to listen to today, especially those people who never seem to be content. Discontentment begins when we start believing we deserve more than God has given us. Do you hear me? Discontentment begins when we start believing that God is not giving us what we deserve. Why isn't He giving me what I deserve? I've been going to church every week. I put money in the tray. I prayed. And I'm not getting the things that I deserve. Think about it. Discontentment is what caused Satan to go from an archangel to God's adversary. He already knows the whole path because he started the path. It's what caused Eve to take a bite of the apple when God said, you can have everything you want except for this one thing. And Satan said, you can still have that. Why wouldn't God want you to have that? It all sounds so good. It's not. And Satan went on from there. Right now he's actively working in the lives of people within this church. He's actively working in this city. He's making you believe that you deserve more than you have. He's making you feel discontent in your life. He's making you feel like, how come I don't get that? They do. Don't you do it. You don't buy into his lies. Don't ever underestimate the damage you can do to your life and your walk with God. 1 Peter 5:8, Peter wrote these words. He said, be alert and of sober mind, you guys. This is so important. Some of you are just taking the 75%. You're just taking Satan like a cartoon character, and you wonder why you can't get closer to God. Listen, take this seriously. Be alert, of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for something to devour. This isn't a joke. This is Satan actively looking for believers today to drag them out of the church. He wants nothing more for you than to give up on God. And I've been so close so many times. In fact, I'll just be admitted, I gave up on God a few times in my life, and I kept calling back saying, God, would you please take me back? And I don't ever want to do that again. I don't ever not want to feel content on where God has me right now. Don't underestimate Satan. He's not some cartoon figure. He's not an imaginary person with the horns and pitchfork. He's real, and he's looking for people to steal from God today. He wants to steal you from God right now. He'd love to keep you feeling content because he knows it will lead to your fall. So, we're out of time for today, but next week I want to talk to you about the secret to contentment and how we can begin to feel it. But for today, here's your goal. Don't allow Satan to take away your joy. Can you say that with me? Don't allow Satan to take away your joy. God has a plan. You're his masterpiece. And you were created in his image. I'll say that again for the people who really need to hear it. God has a plan. You're his masterpiece, and you were created in his image. So you be content with where you're at in life because God has you there for a reason right now. And it's up to you to trust his plan and to be content with the process. Let's go. God, thank you so much. It's funny, God, because for a year we look forward to getting into this building. And I'm just going to flat out say it, God, it was the first week we were here and there was already people complaining about things that they weren't content with. I'm like, come on, what are we doing? Is it all about a building? It's all about material things, isn't it, for some people? This isn't good, and that's not good, and this isn't. Just, come on. You know what's not good, God? You know what's not good. The attitude that's the relationship that some of us have with you. It's because we've allowed Satan to get into our mind. We've allowed him to tear us down. We've allowed him to lead us into comparison matters. We've allowed him into thinking that you should be giving us more than you already have given us. You've given us your son. What more could you give us? And yet some of us are never happy because we want more. Let people know today that you've done more than anyone else has ever done for them. You created them, you provided a path for them to be in heaven. So help us be content. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. And we pray this in Jesus' name.